Friends, today is Friday, the 4th of December, and we've just celebrated the Eucharist, and today is First Friday, so we celebrated the Mass of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the love and the mercy of God for us. As you can see from the windows behind me, it's a beautiful sunny morning. Hopefully it will stay that way. And of course the theme of light is very important. In our readings today, the responsorial psalm, "The Lord is my light and my salvation." The Lord is my light and my salvation. And the gospel is a story of faith, and the miracle that results from that faith. Once again, we have a beautiful example of the kind of pattern that we look to during this Advent season, a pattern of prophecy and fulfillment. And the prophecy from the prophet Isaiah this morning, on that day, that's this day, on that day the deaf shall hear the words of the book, and out of gloom and darkness the eyes of the blind shall see. Out of doom and darkness, the gloom and darkness, the eyes of the blind shall see. How beautifully that is reflected in the gospel today, that story of faith, as I say, and the miracle that results from that faith. To have that faith today is to live outside the box, as we put it into today's language. To have the faith of the gospel today is to live outside of the box. And by that we mean the willingness to risking, venturing beyond what is familiar to us, believing the impossible, believing in the supernatural. There's a world as real beyond ourselves as the world that we see around us. And when we live simply in the narrow and constricted confines of our own perceptions, our own understanding, our own thoughts, our own hopes, when we live in the constricted confines, then, of course, we live in a world that is only the size of our heads, no bigger. We're not open to something bigger, to the supernatural, to a world beyond our own. And when we live in that kind of constricted world, we're cut off. We're cut off from the supernatural, which sometimes it shows itself in spectacular ways, as it does in our gospel today. And what do we find in our gospel today? Jesus says, "Do you believe I can do this? Do you believe I can do this?" In other words, do you believe in a world beyond this one, a supernatural world, and the power that can come from God? And the blind men say, "Yes, Lord, we do believe." And at that, Jesus says, "Let it be done according to your faith." The faith of these blind men coming to Jesus, asking Jesus to have pity, have mercy upon them. And he says, yes, let it be done according to your faith. You know, when we are open to God's grace can flow through us. I kind of think of it as like a conduit, like an electrical conduit from God to ourselves into the world. But we have to be open. We have to turn that switch on. Let that grace come through. Let that grace flow through us like a conduit. And perhaps the first step in allowing that openness and that grace to come through is detachment. I've spoken on detachment before. I'm still learning how to do it. kind of important for me these days as I transition from cathedral to a new assignment, to detach oneself, detachment, to be free, not to be bound to anything. And I found a quotation from St. Ignatius that I think is important. And of course, he was a saint, but all of us are capable of that detachment. And St. Ignatius says this: as far as we are concerned, or in other words, as far as I am concerned, we should not prefer health to sickness. We should not prefer riches to poverty. We should not prefer honor to dishonor. We should not prefer a long life to a short life. And to live in that detachment is to be free. To live in that detachment is to be free and powerful, because nothing controls us. We are in charge. We are in charge. We let go. We surrender to the Lord, and we let go. Powerful. To live beyond the ups and downs. To live beyond the ups and downs of daily life, and there are plenty these days, but to live beyond them, open to whatever grace brings, even miracles. Hold that thought, and we'll see you tomorrow.